Section VI. To the luxurious and intemperate. 'Tis granted that different constitutions and different employments call for a difference in the quantity of food to be used, so that what would be temperance in one person would be intemperance in another. The laboring man requires more than he who uses little exercise, and the person who has a strong constitution more than he who is infirm. On these accounts it would be difficult to lay down a rule that would suit every person, and indeed there is no necessity for it, since the experience of each man may be a guide to him. A small attention to our own feelings will in general tell us when we have taken enough to support and refresh nature, and when we are putting nature to the stretch. Now to put nature to the stretch and to eat till we are uneasy is a degree of gluttony. Are you, sir, given to this excess in eating? Know that gluttony as well as drunkenness is injurious to your health, and brings on a variety of disorders. Some eminent physicians have thought that there is scarce 1 in 20 that grows up to a state of manhood. But excess in eating, and see, is the remote if not the immediate cause of death. Should you object that the most temperate labor under a variety of diseases as well as the intemperate, I reply, partly in the words of another, that these persons, perhaps when they were young, as is too often the case with children, were permitted to go beyond the bounds of moderation, or to eat of things unfit for them, as unripe fruit or the like. Now, when gluttony, and see, has bred the disease, all the temperance that can be used afterwards may be insufficient to prevent the bad consequences. But if these bad consequences follow, notwithstanding and after temperance, how much worse might the evils have been, supposing such persons had given way to excess when they became adults. But it may be you do not offend so much in point of quantity as quality. You may eat but little yet of various sorts at one time, and of health depends upon the state of the solids and fluids which fits them for the due performance of the vital functions. So long as these go on regular, we are found and well, but whatever disturbs them necessarily impairs health. Intemperance, however, never fails to disorder the whole animal economy. It hurts the digestion, relaxes the nerves, renders the different secretions irregular, vitiates the humors, and occasions numberless diseases. Buchan, p. 100. I will not deny indeed but that the rich are allowed to furnish their tables with some variety of pleasing and grateful food, of dishes that are high seasoned. This luxurious cause of diet as well as gross intemperance is likely to be very prejudicial to the constitution, as it vitiates the humors of the body, and, though the malignant effects may not appear immediately, they will sooner or later. The Spectator, speaking of some in high life who devour fowls, fish, in flesh, swallow oil and vinegar, wines and spices, salads of many different herbs, and sauces composed of numerous ingredients at the same meal, says, what unnatural motions and counter ferments must such an emily of intemperance produce in the body? For my part, adds he, when I behold a fashionable table set out in all its magnificence, I fancy that I see gouts and dropsies, fevers, and lethargies with other innumerable distempers lying in ambuscade among the dishes. Besides the prejudice luxury does to your health, the painful diseases to which it exposes you in its shorting life. Luxury and intemperance often dull the body immediately, and render it unfit for business, and are also great enemies to the pleasures of the mind. The intemperate and luxurious person can relish scarce any intellectual delights, and therefore must be a stranger to the happiness of the man, because of his violent attachment to the happiness of the brute, or I was going to say, to a happiness beneath that of the brute, for it has been remarked that few animals eat to excess, and that, as nature delights in the most plain and simple food, every animal except man follows her dictates. Man alone riots at large, and ransacks the whole creation in quest of luxuries to his own destruction. 'Tis true, as I have hinted before, you may experience little or no immediate harm from your luxury, and therefore conclude that no injury is like to ensue. But if you please to exercise your reason, reason will tell you that, though you feel not any present hurt from your luxury, yet you may feel it some months or years after, when a disorder may make its appearance, whose malignancy will be proportionable to the time taken in the formation of it. Those who indulge their appetites with a variety of delicious morsels, and yet think themselves moderate with respect to quantity, should consider that this luxury leads to intemperance, as the fine flavor of this or the other dish may create a false appetite, when in fact nature is sufficiently refreshed. Luxury and intemperance are enemies even to the pleasure of taste itself. For after a while I apprehend the luxurious and immoderate man loses that pleasure of appetite, whilst feeding upon his dainties, which another in the moderate use of plain food enjoys. Consider further that a luxurious course is a bad preparative for any change that may take place in your temporal circumstances. For how shall the person who has been accustomed to the indulgencies of luxury struggle with the hardships of adversity? Kingdoms and empires are more affected by intemperance and luxury than by any other vices. These flourish or decay according to the state of luxury. Does not the luxurious man, therefore, though he may talk of patriotism, act the part of a foe to his native country? By his practice and example he is undesignedly helping forwards its destruction. Luxury, I was going further to observe, does no small injury to posterity by producing a weak and unhealthy offspring. And is there not reason to apprehend that 'tis owing to luxury in a great measure that some families of rank are even become extinct? Think again, does not this costly vice deprive you of that noble pleasure which results from relieving the wants of the indigent? Nay, 'tis possible that the poor, instead of being relieved, are oppressed for the sake of supplying the demands of a depraved appetite. Keep in view, sir, not only the present, but more especially the future awful consequences of these fins as set forth in sacred writ. Muse upon the parable of a Dives, who fared sumptuously every day. Mark that agonizing pain which followed a life of dissipation and pleasure. Luke 16. Hearken also to those alarming words. Rom. Vi. 13. If you live after the flesh, you shall die. That is, if you make your chief happiness to consist in the gratification of your animal appetites. And is not this eminently the case with the luxurious and intemperate? Are you not living after the flesh? And what is the consequence? Sir, you are hastening your temporal death, as intimated before, but that is not all, nor a thousandth part of the injury you are doing yourself. You are bringing upon yourself that tremendous kind of death which only a fowl can die. This, without doubt, is the death the inspired writer had in view when he says, if you live after the flesh ye maul die. Shall I recommend to the notice of the intemperate and luxurious the words of Seneca the heathen philosopher? I am born, says he, to greater things than to be a slave to the body, or to live merely to be a strainer of meats and drinks. Add to these the nobler words of Mr. Joseph Alleine, that excellent Christian, when, said he, I sit down to my table 'tis not to please my appetite, or not merely to please that, nor to pamper my flesh, but to maintain a servant of Christ, that he might be fit for his Lord's work. Is not this a sentiment most worthy of a rational, immortal mind? Is not here an example beautifully answering to that apostolic precept which is of general concern? 1 Cor. X 31. Whether therefore you eat or drink, so whatever you do all to the glory of God. If you wish for a few general rules as a guide to temperance, I would refer you to the Spectator, as every reader may not have that work by him. I'll transcribe a few of them. It seems these rules came from a physician in no small repute. Make your repast, says he, out of one dish, or, if you indulge in a second, avoid drinking anything strong till you have finished your meal. At the same time abstain from all sauces, or, at least, such as are not plain and simple. A man could not well be guilty of gluttony if he stuck to these few obvious and easy rules. In the first place, there would be no variety of taste to solicit his palate and occasion excess, nor in the second any artificial provocatives to relieve satiety and create a false appetite. At the end of the paper we have the good effects of temperance exemplified in the case of Louis Cornaro, the Venetian.